Emily Murphy finally came through, I guess, with the open letter signed by over 100 former national security officers who are all Republicans, some of whom were absolute fascist son of a bitches from various presidencies over the past 40 years. But still, they all signed a letter suggesting that Emily Murphy get off her ass and begin the transition from this filthy Trump administration to the Joe Biden administration. Well, she finally did it after 16 days of teetering between her duty to the orange bastard and the Constitution. Quite a choice there, huh? How did the Washington Post put it? The methodically unfolding reality that Joe Biden won the election has led Emily Murphy to declare the Democrat the apparent victor in an unusually personal letter to him. Letter of which I'm going to share with you in a moment. It's really something. Now, as you know, ever since the election, Emily's boss, the orange swamp bastard, has tried to subvert the election results with all his fraud claims and his so-called legal team offering the most incredible bullshit in courts of law around the country. But after all of that, the embattled head of the General Services Administration held off on making what is usually a routine call after a presidential election. The administrator declares the apparent winner and transition resources flow. Now, that's the way it works. Except when it's an administration like the orange bastards, nothing works except those things that pleases the orange bastard. This is how dictators work. And, I've said before, let's drop the word authoritarian. This crumb bum is not an authoritarian, Trump. He's a would-be dictator. And you know what? I think it has become apparent with some of his mumblings and threats and the cowardice that the Republican Party has displayed to the point where the Republican Party is no longer the Republican Party, but is now the fascist party in the United States. But I think it's apparent, given what Trump has been saying, that the only way that this son of a bitch is going to disappear from the American political scene is when he dies. It is going to take his death. And then the cucumbers and some of these militia bastards will try to deify him and turn him into the equivalent of a new Catholic saint. But until Trump steps off this earthly coil, he is going to be a voice of dissension, trouble, ugliness, lies, deceit, amorality, no ethical function whatsoever. This is a real monster. I mean, he truly is a monster to democracy, to self-governance, to representative government. And it's going to take his death. Now, how old is he? 74, 75? Come on. Come on, Don. More cheeseburgers. Stuff them down, buddy. No exercise. Use that golf cart. When you go golf, quote, quote, and you swing your big bulk, it's obvious that you don't exercise. Just don't. Exercise is bad for you, Don. It really is. More cheeseburgers, no exercise, and more stress. Okay? Come on. Miss Murphy, who is a by-the-book expert in federal procurement policy, consulted with her senior staff and her attorneys. This is according to the Washington Post. Now, the transition law dates to 1963. See, it's not in the Constitution. And it was supposed to guide her in determining when a candidate has won. And it had little to offer in the current case with a president quotes around the word president, refusing to concede, and a bunch of cowards in his party standing by him. The American Fascist Party, like every fascist party, historically every fascist party, is encrusted with cowards, liars, bullies, sons of bitches. Every single fascist party, the United States Fascist Party being no exception. As pressure grew on Miss Emily, she became a stand-in. Poor creature. Poor thing. Poor Emily. She became a stand-in for the divisions that the orange bastard has engulfed this country in. And then yesterday, the orange bastard said that he recommended that Murphy start the transition, but she insisted that she acted on her own. He said, she said, oh my, isn't that just the kind of the subtext of the Trump administration? He said, she said, only the she's have all been women who have charged this orange son of a bitch with some sort of sexual attack. He said, she said. Now, Emily is one of those people that when Trump would take a look, it's a good thing Emily never said, well, he tried to get in my pants, because Trump would take a look at her and say, oh, excuse me. No, she's not my type. Woo! Right? We know our president, don't we? Anyway, Murphy was appointed by Trump in 2017. And she wrote that she had received threats, quote, online, by phone, or by mail, directed at my safety, my family, my staff, and even my pets in an effort to coerce me into making the determination prematurely, end quote. One word for that, Emily, bullshit. Oh, my God. Now, it's become common knowledge since November 7th, what's today, 24th, that Biden had won the presidency. But Trump continued to maintain, and does now, that he's the winner. I will never concede. More than $7 million in taxpayer money in access for Biden's team to federal agencies have been on the line as Biden officials tried as best they could to prepare themselves for a really difficult task of, well, let's just take one thing. The whole transition is going to be a total mind screw up. But the task of distributing this coronavirus vaccine and shoring up the economy, those are the two main issues facing the country right now domestically. We have issues that can be defined as international issues that also require a tremendous amount of attention to detail, to direction, to leadership, none of which we've had. But the coronavirus and the distribution of this vaccine is paramount right now. But Emily wanted more certainty about the selection of president before she triggered the transfer of power. That's according to people close to her. Even though Emily's actions were upending hundreds of years of peaceful transitions from one administration to the next. And that has been one of the essential hallmarks of American democracy. That no matter how hard we fight in the past to elect our particular candidate, when the election is over, everybody puts their guns back in their holsters and says, okay, the deed is done. Let's go about our business of just living our lives, and the new administration can take power. That's the way it's always been until this orange monster showed up. This woman molesting, child destroying, sick son of a bitch that became president of the United States with the help of Russian military intelligence. Then it changed. But Emily wanted more certainty before triggering the transfer of power. Battleground states, so-called. I hate that term. What are they? Georgia, we used to be one. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, yada, yada, yada. They would certify the vote, and Trump's his legal challenge to the will of the American people would play out, Emily said. That's what she told her colleagues. I'm not doing anything. Right. And then there was the orange bastard's anger. You know what I say about his anger? Somebody ought to just stand up to him face to face and tell him to sit down and shut the F up. Anger. Oh, what? What's he going to do? This is the part I don't get, I don't get this. Trump is a two-bit chiseler. He's a liar, a thug, a thief. And there's not a single Republican in the House or the Senate or in the state houses or anywhere, a single Republican who had the presence, the courage, if that's what it takes, to stand face to face with Trump and say, you loudmouth son of a bitch, sit down and shut up. What is it about the President of the United States that one moment he's a two-bit chiseling son of a bitch? Ask Lindsey Graham, ask all the Republican leadership back in 2015, just a punk, just a con artist, a criminal, 1 minute. And the next minute, after he's sworn in with the help of Russian military intelligence, all of a sudden, this Republican leadership, such as it is, can't even approach him? And all of a sudden, the people who were breaking his balls the hardest, like Lindsey Graham cracker, all of a sudden become his greatest sycophants, willing to kneel before him and get the fellator mood on. What is it? Oh, well. The president's anger and the risk that he would fire her. And Emily's top aides would get fired too if she moved forward. If she followed the law, she had to wait. The orange monster might get pissed off, Emily. And Republicans, while privately acknowledging that the orange bastard had lost, were sticking with the president in public. So Emily had no cover. There was no place to run, no place to hide. Oh my goodness, what to do? And then threats came in as furious Trump critics demanded that she release the money. The General Services Administration had to provide her with a security detail. Democrats on Capitol Hill were summoning Emily to brief them and threatening to haul her to a public hearing. Haul her? What, in a pickup truck? Oh, well. Eventually, I'm quoting from the Washington Post. This is great. This is great reading. This is very dramatic stuff, okay? Eventually, the tide shifted. In recent days, more and more Republicans have urged Trump publicly to accept his loss. And as Michigan certified its votes yesterday following the president's legal defeat in Pennsylvania, her decision became clear, her friend said. She would close one chapter in the election's messy aftermath with a 2-page letter to the next president. Now, what was the orange bastard's response to this? He still will not concede. Oh, because it's in his nature. He's a real fighter. Never give up, never give in. Right, Donnie, you little piglet? Oh, you're going to keep fighting. Well, you go ahead. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. As you know, we've switched formats and are now broadcast exclusively on the Progressive Voices Network. So that means you get fewer program interruptions, no corporate commercials, and lots of profanity. But our format change also means some of our radio listeners no longer hear the program. It's been a while since I mentioned our podcasts, so you may have forgotten that there is a way to listen to this program anytime you need a good dose of screaming. Visit MikeMalloy.com and subscribe to our podcast. As a podcast subscriber, you can download the program to your mobile device and take me with you wherever you go. And if you have a friend who needs a dose of truth-seeking, you can give a gift subscription as well. That's MikeMalloy.com, and never miss a minute of the uncensored fun and frivolity.